This is the last recording made before everything went silent. It's creepy and sad at the same time. The silence of space is one of the most terrifying things that we have ever encountered. We are used to hearing sounds around us all the time. When you were young, if you were put into a silent room for even just a few minutes, it probably felt like hours. As adults, we are still freaked out by sudden silences, especially when they happen in places where noise should be present. A live performance cuts out right before your favorite song. You try to change the channel, but nothing comes on. Then there's the unsettling silence of a static killing you. But none of these can compare to the absolute quiet of space. As an astronaut who has spent months living in space stations, I know this feeling of silence well. You float in a closed metal box while being surrounded by the coldness of space. Even if your suit's life support system starts acting up, you won't hear it over the deafening hum of space. And this brings me to the topic of today's video. It's about the last recording ever made before the radio silence that fell upon the Voyager 1 spacecraft. Back in the 1970s, NASA built two probes that would go further than any spacecraft had gone before. These two probes would venture into the vast unknown of interstellar space. They would take pictures of planets in our solar system that no human had ever seen before. And they would also carry golden records filled with the sights and sounds of Earth in case some alien species stumble across them. These probes were called Voyager 1 and 2, and they are still operational to this day. That is why I was shocked to hear that one of them went silent. These Voyagers have been traveling through space for more than 45 years now. At this point, their mission was long completed, and they were just sent into the endlessness of space to see where they end up. Sure, NASA kept track of them, but they weren't expecting them to send back much data. In fact, the amount of power these probes generate is so low now that communication is difficult. It takes 40 minutes for the signal to reach Earth from Voyager 1, and this means that NASA is unable to respond to the probe in real time. Instead, the scientists have to wait until they get a response from Voyager 1 before asking it another question. This means that sometimes they receive outdated information or no response at all. And this is what happened when NASA tried contacting Voyager 1 on August. The tracking team responsible for monitoring Voyager 1 noticed that something was wrong when they heard a strange sound coming from the probe. It sounded like the faint buzzing of a fly, but it was coming from the depths of space. They ignored it at first because it could easily be explained by cosmic noise. But on August, the signal became more intense. To find out what was happening, NASA sent a command to Voyager 1 to switch off its thrusters and see if that solved the problem. But instead of solving it, this maneuver only made the buzzing louder. NASA then tried sending a second-in-command, but the probe didn't respond, since they hadn't received a response from the probe in more than 40 minutes. The engineers decided to stop their work for the day. They figured that they'd de-check back on Voyager 1 the next day and see if it resumed normal transmission. But when they checked in the next morning, the buzzing had stopped and total silence had fallen. There was no way that NASA would let this slide. They knew that the reason behind the silence would either make or break their decades-long project. So a team of experts got together to discuss what could have caused the silence. After thinking hard for a bit, one engineer spoke up and said that it might be a problem with the reaction control system. This system controls the orientation of the probe, and it uses 12 small thrusters to do so. It was possible that one of the thrusters started working on its own and pushed the antenna away from Earth, thus cutting off transmissions. But this theory was quickly dismissed, since such a thing had never happened before. And it would have been a huge coincidence if it happened now. Another engineer then spoke up, and he brought up the telemetry subsystem. This subsystem sends data from the various parts of the probe to the antenna. It's possible that one of the parts failed and gave a false reading, which prompted NASA to send commands that they shouldn't have. But again, such a failure wasn't likely, and it would only affect one instrument. All the other instruments would be working normally. At this point, nobody had an answer for what caused the silence. So NASA tried a risky move. It decided to ignore the silence and pretend that everything was normal. It kept sending regular commands to Voyager 1 and waited for a response. But for 43 days, they received nothing but silence. Then came the day when NASA finally received a response. It was brief and to the point. The single sentence read, "We've been getting your messages." The problem is a single bit error in the attitude articulation and control subsystem. With this message, NASA finally knew what to blame for the silence. One bit of data sent from the telemetry subsystem had corrupted, and that caused the reaction control system to freak out. NASA was relieved to know what caused the silence, but they knew that it would be quite some time before they could fix it. Voyager 1 is 15 billion miles away from Earth. This means that sending a replacement part would take tens of thousands of years, so they had only one option. They would have to rewrite the code of the reaction control system, so that it would function properly without the antenna. This was easier said than done, though, since reprogramming the code meant that they had to redo many tests. But finally, on October, after 3 months of silence, Voyager 1 responded again. The probe sent a picture of the cosmos, and it showed that the antenna was pointed in the right direction. This meant that the reprogramming had worked, and the probe was back online. Now, you might think that this is the end of the story, but it's not. This is actually the last recording that was made by Voyager 1. Since it takes 40 minutes for a signal to reach Earth from the probe, the last recording that was made by Voyager 1 is the one that we are listening to right now. This is the recording of October 27, 2022. After this, the antenna turned towards Earth and the probe went silent once again.
Since Voyager 1 went silent after sending us the picture, NASA can't be sure if the probe is working or not.
They do want to know if the antenna is still pointed towards Earth or if it's looking at the stars. The silence of Voyager 1 is both exciting and saddening. It's exciting because it means that we have successfully launched an object past our solar system. But it's saddening because it also means that we will never be able to contact it again. When we launched Voyager 1, the Cold War between the US and Russia was still ongoing. The Soviet Union had just launched the Sputnik satellite, and people were afraid that they would be left behind. President Kennedy wanted to prove that America was still the superior nation, and he set his eyes on the moon. He announced to the nation that America would land a human on the moon by the end of the decade, and everyone in the country, including scientists and engineers, worked tirelessly to achieve this goal. Every invention, every breakthrough, brought America closer to the moon, and then, on December 21, 1968, it happened. Apollo 8 left the atmosphere of Earth and became the first spacecraft to orbit the moon. As the astronauts traveled around the moon, they took beautiful pictures of Earth, which were broadcasted live to the public. People across the world watched as a small blue dot rotated silently in the black canvas of space. This experience changed the world, made people realize that Earth was just a tiny part of the universe, and that there might be other life forms out there. In fact, this is what inspired NASA to launch the Voyager missions. They wanted to explore the universe and find signs of extraterrestrial life. And they did find some amazing things like the rings of Saturn and the active volcanoes on Jupiter's moon Io. But they never found any aliens. And now Voyager 1 has gone silent, which means that our chances of finding aliens have become even slimmer. This is the last recording made before everything went silent. It's creepy and sad at the same time.